exclusive launch of a new anthology of critical essays titled Goa Matters in Law and Literature. The book is edited by Dr. Kiran Budkuley, and it will be launched here today by Professor Edwin Thombo, who is Emeritus Professor and Professional Fellow at the National University of Singapore. He has been involved in Singapore's literary development since 1951 as a poet, as a critic, anthologist, and also as an arts administrator. He has initiated several initiatives, including the Creative Arts Program, the National Poetry Festival, and what has now become the Singapore Writers' Festival. Wordcade has his seventh book of poems, which was published. Wordcade is his seventh book of poems, which was published in 2013. I welcome him on, Professor Thombo, I welcome you on to this. Dr. Budkuley, please come on this place. Dr. Isabella Santa Rita Vaz, Frederick Norona, please come up on this floor. We now hand it over to Maria Donker to take this forward.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A warm welcome to all of you delegates, guest writers, readers, and literateurs. It is indeed a privilege for us to have this book release function at Goa Arts and Literary Festival. It is the best platform that a book can get because we have to look no further. You all are here, our target audience, authors, critics, readers, and today here in one place, and that is indeed a very unique phenomenon. We have with us Professor Edwin Thombo, who is with us all the way from Singapore, Emeritus Professor at National University of Singapore. He is unofficially dubbed as the Poet Laureate of Singapore. Professor Thombo's poems, which are said to be myth-inspired, have created ripples in Singaporean literature in English, especially his 1979 collection of poems titled Ulysses by the Moonlight. Before the book release, I would like to say something about this book and the inception of the idea of this volume. 2 years ago, that was on 14th September 2014, Department of English, Goa University celebrated the centenary of Goa's beloved writer Sri Lambert Mascarenhas at Institute Meneses Braganza, Panji. On this occasion, 23 papers were presented in the course of 2 days, which were based on Goan writing in English and in translation. This is how the inception of the present volume took place. After a period of fervent coordination and review, we had 17 full papers based on the works of Sri Lambert Mascarenhas and other Goan writing in original and in translation. With a confluence of efforts on the part of the editor, Dr. Kiran Budkuley, former Dean of Faculty of Languages and Head of Department of English, Goa University, Institute Meneses Braganza, and Broadway Publication, a preview of this book was released at the Shakespeare Festival held on the 15th of October 2016. And today, finally, we have the release of the much-awaited book, Goa Matters in Lore and Letters, Writings of Land, Loss and Longing, edited by Dr. Kiran Budkuley. I now request Professor Thombo to kindly release the book, and I also request the dignitaries on the dais to join him while he releases this book.
Very careful, we can recycle the paper.
and loss and longing. Thank you, Professor. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, all the dignitaries on the days.
I can sit here then, whichever is convenient.
We are most happy to have you.
As mentioned earlier, we now have a panel discussion on this book. Before the discussion begins, I would like to say a few things about this book which I think are important. For any literature to sustain itself, the nexus between three elements is extremely important, that is, authors, readers, critics. Authors produce literature, readers consume it, and critics give it a direction, or more specifically, a perspective. And eventually, these perspectives in turn help the readers and the authors to read better or write better, respectively. Go on writing, if it has to sustain itself, needs a strong critical sounding board, which this book provides. This occasion and venue of GALF is the best platform that the book could get, because the audience is full of minds rich and fertile with literature. Three of such minds, who interestingly also happen to be paper presenters and contributors to this book, are here with us today for the panel discussion. We have with us Dr. Isabel Santarita Vaz, who scarcely needs any introduction. She is a master performer, a writer, a professor, a thinker, a critic, and above all, a person to be looked up to in all spheres of life. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Isabel Santarita Vaz. We have with us Mr. Frederick Noronha, another unique personality in Goan literary arena, who is a journalist, a publisher, a research scholar, and editor rolled into one. I request the audience to kindly give a welcome to Mr. Frederick Noronha. And lastly, we have with us Ms. Eva Gupta, an effervescent scholar and a literary enthusiast who is currently pursuing her doctoral research at Department of English, Goa University. I request the audience to welcome Eva with a round of applause. I now request the moderator of the panel to kindly take over for the panel discussion. A little about Ma'am Budkuley before I begin. As it is customary, the editor of the book, of course, is the former Dean, Faculty of Languages and Literature, Goa University, and former Head of Department of English, Goa University. She has written and edited critical volumes on Goan writing, both in English and in Konkani. Her contribution to translation is immense. For students of the university, she is best known as the powerhouse of knowledge and skills that she imparts via various translation and critical workshops organized during her term. I request the audience to kindly welcome ma'am with a big round of applause. I request you, ma'am, to take over for the panel discussion.
Organizers, a formal thank you yet again for giving us this opportunity to have our book released here and at the hands of a most eminent creative writer, a critic, and academician. We are honored, sir, to have you with us. I also thank everyone on behalf of this panel because they've given us this time and space. Why did we think of having a panel discussion when there was a book release? Could it not just be a formality? I thought that having a book and then requesting the readership to try their luck with the book would not be a very fair option at all. So we thought, in the course of this discussion, some nuggets about the book and about the writing that we have taken up for study could also be revealed so that a book can stand on its own individual merit or demerit. I like to look upon books like little babies. We tend them until they are with us. But when they go into the world after publication, they have to stand for themselves and we cannot handhold them anymore. So this is the last time, this is the Namkaran that we are having, and after that I think the baby will be on its own on the bookstore. There is a three-pronged approach that we have taken. It is first to commemorate Lambert Mascarenhas, who is an icon, an institution we are very proud of. But in the course of time, if we knew Lambert well, he would not have liked just eulogies about his work. So we thought, let us have a kind of critical insight into his writing, but also on something that he loves best, and that is writing about Goa. And that is how the idea of having a volume on Goan writing in English from Konkani or other languages and originally written in English came about. There have been 17 contributors to this volume. Why then are only 3 or 4 here? A lot of thought has gone into having them. We wanted somebody who is an academician, who has an insight into young minds, into literature and into analysis, and that is how a creative mind who is well versed with theatre like Miss Vaz came to be with us. A book and the publishing world are inseparable, and I don't think we could have kept Frederick Noronha out. He's a part of this book and is not a part of this book, as you will see when you look through the contents. There's a little report we have at the end of the book, so that will tell you how Frederick is a part of this book. But he's also tangentially attached to it, and we wanted this tangential voice from the publication world. And why Eva? Is she a favored student? Is she a special contributor? Those things may or may not be, but they are not the reason. We wanted a very young voice, the youngest among them all, if possible, and someone with a slightly research-oriented mind. And there is another thing which I don't like to say, but let us say, she is a non-Goan, which gives an additional kind of dimension. How does she see Goan writing? This is how I put it to us. And so, let us begin without further ado. How do we perceive Goan writing? And in this Goan writing, do we also include theatre? And what do we think? Is that a drama, a neglected area? Is it a kind of a stepchild, or how do you perceive it? I think with this question, I would like to begin. Goan theatre in English, in Konkani, in Marathi, in translation plays, or otherwise, I think Ms. Vaz may unlock some of the answers.
Thank you, Professor Budkuley. Wonderful initiative. When the seminar was held to commemorate our dear author, Lambert Mascarenhas, amongst a whole lot of people was I, trying to see if I could make a small contribution to the seminar. And I discovered that I know really very little about Goan writing. So this became for me an occasion to learn a little. And I decided to write about one of his novels that isn't that well known, Heartbreak Passage. And so, where I stood, I was trying to understand a writer, a man who has been into creative writing as well as journalism. Through that one novel, I entered another world altogether, and I think that is what we do when we read the Goan writers who are today. So many of them are flourishing today, and new stories and new themes. So for many people, as well as for me, this was a journey of discovery. Heartbreak Passage is about the independence of India and partition. And I asked myself, how were Goans involved in this major story when Portugal was supposed to be a neutral power during the Second World War, and Goa was still under colonial rule. And I discovered many things, and I found it so very exciting that here is a man, he was 94 when he wrote that novel, who had surely seen partitions galore. There are partitions happening around us even today. Was writing about partition in a very gentle way. And for me, truly, this is the incentive to read what other people, my contemporaries, are writing today, because there are worlds and worlds that open to us. Palya spoke of the writer, the reader, and the critic. And we must say the publisher, because much of the Goan writing that is available to us is thanks to our friend Frederick. To say something about theatre, I am fascinated with the amount of theatre that there is in Goa actually, except that there are no bridges, or there are very few bridges between the theatres in various languages. If I take one step into the world of Marathi literature, I see so much happening. There is some original writing, and there is a great deal of first-class performance. And somebody who is outside the world of Marathi writing knows little or nothing about this very exciting dramatic world. About theatre, for instance, we know. I look at the newspapers on Saturday and Sunday, the number of advertisements about theatre tell us that this is really a very popular form. And so hats off to such vibrant theatre. My small contribution has been in the field of writing theatre in English, for the simple reason that that is the language that I am most at ease in. And perhaps because my professional career was that of a teacher and a student and a teacher of English literature. Theatre is something literally that I stumbled into. To begin with, I was interested in the short story. And then as a teacher, you know how English teachers are always asked to take the students when they are performing a play or some annual day or whatever. And though reluctantly, I got involved. And then a day came when I became part of a theatre group. And there's never been any looking back. For me, it has been a tremendous journey of discovery, because when I started writing, I said to myself, what are the stories that I am familiar with? What can I write about? What is it that I know well enough to write about? And so we began performing the work of great playwrights from around the world. And then a day came when we needed to perform something about a local story. And I sat down to write. And that's how I began writing. And today, wherever I go, a story stares me in the face. And I have to discipline myself from writing because there are so many hours, only so many hours in the day. So I think in a way what is happening about, I think, is being born. There is a wonderful regional facet to it, and I think there is also a very wonderful cosmopolitan sensibility to it, which completely fascinates me. So I do my little bit. We perform some of the plays that I write, and I think in that sense, theatre is different from a novel, is different from a short story. It's a little different from a poem. This morning I attended a poetry reading which was just too good for words. I found the poems so beautiful and so moving. And I am aware that the audience, in a sense, also contributes to the reading of the poem, which is what I'm saying about theatre. The playwright has to factor in the audience, and therefore the demands of the audience, the demands of the worldview of the playwright, all those mesh together, not always in a very harmonious and balanced manner. It's a struggle, but it's one that I am loath to part with. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vice. The audience, I seem very much convinced why we were looking up. But when she spoke about Heartbreak Passage and spoke about the writer writing at the age of 94 and how he looks back on partitions in a very gentle way, I was also thinking of the writer in 1955 when he wrote his second work, which became a celebrated work, Sorrowing Lies My Land. And when we were having this seminar, Sorrowing Lies My Land had maximum focus from readers, spectators, because there were also some audiovisual part to the program, performative part to the program. A part of that was presented by students, some of them are here, of Sorrowing Lies My Land. And Ibha Gupta, I remember, read a paper. And in the course of a paper, she must have done a little research on her own, trying to know the family, get some kind of hands-on information directly from them. And she also revealed how the book was used during the colonial era as a kind of, comment on the colonial experience in Goa. So Ibha, would you like to talk about your experience, and then if you want, you can also say something about gold writing and music.
Thank you, ma'am. When I was writing the paper, I had the fortune of going to Lambert Mastroianni's house, and although he couldn't talk to me personally, I did talk to Amita, the daughter. And this was in 2014 when I was writing this paper. I think I was 20, 21, and I was really excited because I was discovering this writer through a very close personal source. And we got to a part where I was like, okay, Amita, can you tell me something about the relevance of this book to me? And someone who's new to this entire world of critical analysis and research. And she told me a fact that they had found out in that year itself, where some granddaughter of the family found a copy of Sorrowing Lies My Land in the library somewhere in the US. And the family decided to investigate as to how this copy reached that library. And they found out that the government of India had distributed these copies at several international forums in order to generate support for and sympathies for what was happening in Goa. Because as we know, India got freedom before Goa got liberated. So the Indian government at that time had actually given out these copies of Sorrowing Lies My Land, and that's how it ended up in some obscure library in the US. And when I heard that, I was shocked, because this was in 2014 when this fact was coming out. And that got me thinking about why Goan writing in English is necessary. We all agree and we all know the importance of writing in regional languages. We know that writing in the native tongue and giving that project a momentum is important for the local culture, for the native people. But writing in English stories about Goa is also very important. And I have a few points that I will quickly put in front of you as to why a book like Sorrowing Lies My Land, because it was written in English, had an international impact, so as to say. So there's a basically I've written down a few points for you to just put forth in front of you, and a lot of people who I'm actually going to quote are here. This Mr. Brian Mendonca, this Mr. Frederick Narona, right, sitting next to me. And when I step out of Goa, I don't think of myself as a non-Goan Goan. I just think of myself as a Goan, and I take it as a duty to represent my state when I step out of it. And most often than not, from personal experience, the kind of impression that Goa has today at the national and international level is not something to be proud of, unfortunately. The minute you go in my generation and tell someone that, hi, I'm so and so and I'm from Goa, the first thing they will ask you is, oh, so you must party a lot. And you must be really, drinking every day of your life, and you must know where all the nefarious activities happen. And the minute I hear that, I feel personally offended, because that is not the Goa that I am born and brought up in. Goa has a historical past that is rich, a literary tradition that is rich, and somehow that part always seems to be missed out by people who know it or who want to come and see our land. So writing in English has a practical use to it, and that practical use is reaching out to a massive audience. Like I said, I understand the need of writing in regional languages, but today, if I have to use a very business sort of metaphor, if the truth about our land, if the kind of richness and of culture and literature of our land is the product, then English becomes the packaging that appeals to the masses, right? And it becomes a very powerful tool for us to break stereotypes about Goa, especially for people like me who love this land for what it is and not what is portrayed just so that we can get people here and stay here and do all sorts of things that we know that they do. Very recently, a very sad thing happened in my neighborhood. We had a banyan tree that was almost 200 years old, and the property on which it stood was bought by some NRI family who has probably never stepped a foot here, and I don't think they knew the importance of the tree, and they got it cut. And the entire tree is now a stump, and it was a very sad day in my village. I stay in a small village in South Goa, and it was really sad. And just a couple of days later, I happened to come across Mr. Brian Mendonca's self-published collection, and there was a called The Last Bus to Vasco, and it's poetry written in English about Goa. And there's a poem which said, which is titled Requiem to the Sal, and it spoke about how this huge sal is cut down and it's bleeding, and these people are coming with blades to cut it down. And when I was reading that poem, I could immediately identify with what was happening in my neighborhood. Because I speak in English, like ma'am said, the ease of the language, that is what I think in, that is what I write in, and that's what I could connect to. And political and colonial baggage aside, English is the most widely spoken language. And in order to reach this message out to people who are not as invested in the land as you and I are, they do not have a certain affinity to the land, they do not understand the environmental nuances that we respect, it's very important to write in a language where we can claim back our ownership and where we can tell them that stop. So we have to write in a language in which they understand. Yes, okay, so but that's basically my point, that in order to break stereotypes, in order to reach out and to get Goa to mainstream, because it's not like Goa is hidden away. It is already interacting with national and global players, and it's time to bring the real Goa out instead of what is projected and what appeals to people for the wrong reasons. And English and creative writing in English is the tool for that. Thank you.
Sorry, sometimes you have to perform the hard duty of a timekeeper. The clock is ahead of me, and I will give to Frederick what is Frederick's, and he had said, I would like to speak last. So Frederick, you go.
I'll just be a bit brief and make a few bullet points. One of the big secrets about me was that I was a student of the English department in 85 to 87 when it used to be in the hospital, Goa Medical College Hospital. But what is not a secret is those who know me know I was a terrible student there. So, half of my time I was sitting in the library, avoiding the class, not because the class was bad, but because the library was so good. And while some people are critical of the university, I really appreciate it for shaping us and making us what we are. So it was there that I came across Robert Newman's essay, Goa, the Transformation of Indian Region, and I can still remember the feeling on reading it when I said that, it is someone sitting half a world away. He was in Australia at that time, now he's in the US, who is understanding our society and we don't understand it ourselves. So what started as a collection of books, my claim to fame is I have about 1,500 books on Goa, if I can boast that today. And that went into reviewing books and now subsequently went into publishing them. I mean, publishing is not a great activity. We guys who can't do any other work, we kind of package your work and sell it back to you. So that's what the con publishing is all about. But, I think at the end of the day, we need all these strands to come together. Academia, the writers, the market, the readers. And it's only when all these come together that we have a viable ecosystem. So we do need, some things are still lacking, but it's so encouraging to see so many people interested in going writing. And the field is rich out there, believe me. You can find all the books. Unfortunately, we don't read too much, so maybe, scholars from Brazil, from Portugal may be more interested in our literature than we are at this point of time. But academia has taken a huge interest in the last 10, 15 years, and there's a lot of change happening. Of course, I've been constantly pushing one agenda. I think that we need more translations happening. Now with students being more multicultural, at least every student would speak 2 or if not 3 or 4 languages. Some better, some worse. So they could definitely translate from those languages into the other. I won't throw a flame gate as Ms. Gupta said about English and prioritizing English. The only reason why we publish in English is because we can't do it in other languages. But I think all languages are important. And we do need translations happening, and I hope the university can play that small role of, pushing translations. It's nice to see so much academic interest in foreign writing. I'm just a collector of books. I'm not an academic. I'm more of an archivalist. And I think that it's important for us to understand ourselves. But I would really welcome these students.
If self-effacement is not a quality of Frederick, what is, you would say? But he has been very lucid and very clear, and in brief, he has put up in a nutshell what we should be doing and what we have done that is valuable. There are 2 things on my agenda, and one is to welcome Sri Mahabaleshwar Sail, for whom a chair is waiting, because he represents the Goan, Konkani and Indian writing. In fact, we have a little surprise for him. You miss that, please. It's our honor to have you. Please, give him a big hand. We have saved a surprise for him, and that surprise is, there was a book on Konkani writing in English and in translation, Konkani writing only, which was released at the World Konkani Center, Mangalore, 3 days ago. We just thought, at his hands, we will re-release it, show it to the Goan readership, because I think he is one of the most written about Konkani writers in English. Please. to give us a few pearls of his experience gleaned in poetry and thought. Professor.
You know, for a Singaporean, coming to Goa is a kind of walking into a history you've heard about, the names you have met, the teachers you have had. So for me, coming here has been a tremendous experience. And I've yet to discover a Goan name that I haven't heard in Singapore. Some of my best teachers were Goans. My favorite was Sylvester Nisa, a tremendous person. Too gentle to have been successful, too giving to have been successful. He's remembered with great affection for us. And then we had Philip Nazareth, a history teacher, Peter's uncle, and so on. A whole group of people. So there's no Goan name that I haven't heard before. And you know, what's interesting is this: the Goan diaspora has got has got unique features. When we talk about diaspora, we talk about cultures going, correct? In the case of the Goan diaspora, it's a Goan going. He goes there, he adapts. And some of them keep connection with the home, the Konkani, or whatever language right here, in different ways. This is the kind of phenomenon you find in any diaspora. And incidentally, if you look at the diasporic history of the world, the Indians have been the most diasporic people for one simple reason. They belong to the British Empire. And the empire, as so-and-so said, as we all know, the sun never sets, so the Indians are almost all over the place. Every major area, every major colony. Except the white dominions. They never took us there. One exception to that exception is Africa, where they took a lot of us. So I have to remember, it is the Goan people going. So the Goan experience in many languages. Peter Nazareth, when he was putting that book together, I happened to be in Iowa. If I recall, he said there were 13 languages of Goans. Am I right? 13, 16, but there, you discover more languages, etc. It's tremendous. But what makes the literature Goan is the Goan experience, not the language. And this is important. And when you talk about translation, you have to retranslate from the 13 languages into something common. That presumably is English. But wouldn't it be lovely to have them also translated, all of them into Konkani? I think that is important. That's equally important because you need your base language, your ancestral language. That is very important. I do not know how strong it is because there are pluses and minuses for going into Konkani in a big way. But the other thing, of course, is one people into many languages, and then what happens in many languages, the experience comes back to the one people. So my point is this. Why not, given internet, given all the technologies available, and given the number of rich Goans overseas, when I say rich, I do not mean billionaires, you don't have to be Trumps, okay? And there are many Goan professionals who are successful. Try to approach them and say, look, we need 5,000 US to translate this, or to put this into internet, or to digitize it. And give put the person's name there and say, look, this is digitized version has been made possible by Dr. So-and-so, or Professor So-and-so, or Mrs. So-and-so, donated in memory of their father, and so on and so on. And $5,000 is nothing for a bloke who's a surgeon or whatever in the US. You're not asking for 5 million. You're not asking for anything. So give it a try. Give it a try. Tap the Goans. Ask them to do it. And what we need is a center, a repository, a place where you can put all these things. And many of these books, the old books, are no longer covered by copyright. In which case you make them freely available. And what you can do is to have for each book, or each set of books or whatever, or each writer for that matter, or each theme, or each episode, you can have a website for people to contribute their comments. And you've got to be very careful because you always have some naughty little fellow who might add sort of things that are undecided. I think you know what I mean. And I must end by saying that, Doctor, you have contributed so much to the cause of Goan literature, culture. Finally, I would suggest we add a fourth dimension. Dimension three dimension, publishing. Yes. Publishers are very important. And remember, they have to make a living, huh? So we have to buy books. I'm a bit worried because the number of books I bought, I don't know whether I'm going to exceed my 30 kg. Incidentally, there's a good argument. You can only use it once. When I was coming back from the States, I had more than 30 kg on United Airlines and was stopped. Fortunately for me, there was a huge man he says, look, he's so big, give him 30 kg. All right? Just give me half the difference between his weight and mine. I said, is that unfair? They have to give it to me again. Thank you very much. Sorry, I have to end with that.
So, ladies and gentlemen, not 3, not 4, but 5 dimensions have come with publishing, also the readership who buys, not just readership in the libraries. And I think with this kind of a 5-point thing, we are almost coming to the end of the session, but still I have a very optimistic board rising up there, and I think we can take 1 or 2 responses from the audience. I can't say questions because we have not spoken in a very erudite and intellectual manner. We have opened our hearts to you. If you have any suggestions or observations, then be very brief. 2 can be taken.
Don't feel shy, please. Anyone can ask.
Students in the back, you have a paper on this. I have a question for the publisher.
Can I get you the mic?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I don't know if this question is out of place at all, but it's a question that has been on my mind. It's a question for publisher. And you spoke about how you package books to sell back to the author. I was just wondering, does the author ever make anything out of it financially? I'm curious because that would encourage an author to keep writing also. Otherwise, they have to have a day job and then they have to put their energy into books only after that.
The official response, if you want, is that you make tons of money. Look at J.K. Rowling and things like that. But the actual response is that honestly, there's very little if you're talking in terms of direct returns. I think that an author needs to look at it as a long haul kind of thing. Incidentally, I'm a journalist myself who went into publishing, so I know where this question is coming from. You're not going to make direct money. Very few authors have made. It's not, even if it's money, it's not big money, but the kind of social capital you're building up, the kind of professional status you're building up, that can be huge. So it's a neither here nor there answer, but that's how it is.
Because I was reading something that the guy who wrote Shantaram, Gregory David Roberts, he actually stated on his website that he negotiated to get 50% of the sales. So I just found that but shouldn't it be 50-50? Why did someone like him have to negotiate that? So I just want to get the publisher's perspective on that.
See, they call it royalty, but actually it's more of a pittance because the royalty rates are about 10% of the cover price, of the sale price of the book. So that's because like, for every book you publish, 50% goes to the distributor and part of it goes to the printing cost and all that. So it's a complex kind of system. There are 2 problems here. The publishing system works for big markets. It doesn't work for a small market like Goa. And in a place like Goa, we not only have a tiny market, but it's fragmented among different languages. So we are trying all kinds of ways, untraditional ways to make it work. So I was just talking recently about this book which the Goa writers produced. and everyone volunteered their work. Everyone put in free design and free photographs and everything. They made a profit of 150 over it, and then they didn't know what to do with the money. So finally, because it was a group, so finally they decided to give 50,000 for charity, keep 50,000 for the next book project, and to use 50,000 as small grants to help writing in different colleges and things like that. So in a place like Goa, you have extra problems. You have to make it work, but unless we try, we are caught in between a chicken and egg situation, because the writers are not getting paid sufficiently. They are not writing, and the market is not building up. So somewhere we need to break that. I think it calls for a whole lot of innovative experiments, but it can happen. And there are a lot of signs that it's already happening in Goa. A few of our writers, 2 or 3 of them, have gone national. So that is when they kind of make it big. Many in this room would be Sahitya Academy winners, which brings in certain status with it. But to be very honest, when you're talking about money, people like us who were journalists and hacks and things like that probably could make a living out of that. But writing is more difficult. I don't mean to discourage you, but I'm saying that be aware.
I think we spent our 2 questions one after the other, and I'm saving on time because it's a very important thing. You may think it's a ritual, but for me it's very sacred. I would want Palya to announce the name of the contributors to this volume, and if they are in this hall, I request them to just stand up and acknowledge their presence. That's all we can do for them, and I want to say something small that will keep the heart of those who write. Not creative writing, but critical writing, and that in Konkani, and that on Western literary theory. 1,000 copies took almost 9 years to sell, and I thought nobody would buy them because it is such a thing. But still there is a day when students come to you, or unknown people come to you and say, do you have a copy? And I say no, and I go to the publisher and say, because I've never kept track, because you are not into that kind of a mind. And then he says, no, they're all sold out. I have got some 5 complimentary copies with that stamp. You can sell these. I said, I can't sell them. But I can't tell you the kind of moment of thrill that you feel. That actually these many copies have gone. I don't know how they've gone, whether they've been stolen, purchased, or given away. But that is tremendous because you just know that they will not be sold. One thing was the cost was very low because National Book Trust had given some allowance. That's about all. Once in a way you're very lucky, and this has happened more than once to my books, both in Konkani, which has a small readership, and so I think it is still a very optimistic thing. Money doesn't come, but something more valuable, intangible things come. Tangible things may come, but we need to learn the trick. Absolutely.
Thank you, ma'am. As ma'am said, I would like to announce the names of the 17 contributors of this particular volume. Ma'am Sunita Mesquita, Dr. Prema Rosha, Dr. Isabel Vaz is with us, Dr. Brian Mendonça, Ma'am Shanti, Ma'am Lisela Gonzalez, she's not still in applause, Miss Nafisa Oliveira, Miss Tanvi Bambolkar, Mr. Subhash Kamarkar, Mr. Dattaguru Joshi, Miss Deepa Gupta, Miss Ambika Kamath, Miss Diksha Pandit, Miss Fiona Fernandez. She is studying in the UK, if I'm not mistaken, so definitely she couldn't make it, but yes, we will appreciate her contribution. Miss Diana D'Souza, Miss Glenys Mendonça,
And Palya.
I hand it over to my predecessor.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, all of you, for this wonderful discussion and for having this book launch here at the festival. It's such an honor for the festival to do this here. And I hope the audience will buy the books. They're available at the stores outside. So please do buy them and get them signed by this sort of, you have so many of the contributors here, so please get your copies signed. Thank you all for coming. Yes?
It's not because I want the last word. No. What is remarkable is that all the contributors are young and we've got a lot more contributions.